It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Margaret Montet. Hi, Margaret. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So, according to your bio, you are a college librarian and professor. What
Yes.
college do you work at?
I work at Bucks County Community College in Newtown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Is that a big place?
It's kind of big. It's not like a major university, but we've got a lot of different programs and faculty and things on offer. So it's a pretty cool place.
How long have you worked there?
I'm going on 23 years.
Oh, long time.
Yeah.
You're part of the furniture.
I am pretty much part of the furniture. Yes, I am.
So it says that you write and speak about music, blending in the elements of memoir, travel, art, and literature. Okay.
Yeah.
So what type of music do you write about?
I have always loved the classical music, and I enjoy writing about it when I visit places like Paris or Vienna. You know, that's the music that they're putting forth that they want you to hear from their own place. But I really like jazz too, and I like other kinds of music, so I don't restrict it to just classical. I also love opera quite a bit, and I write about opera as well. During the pandemic, the Metropolitan Opera broadcasted an opera every evening on their website to keep us busy during the quarantine, and I wrote an essay about watching 174 operas in a row.
Wow.
174 nights I watched the operas. After a while, I don't want to say I got tired of the operas, but I got tired of the project, kind of, and I had to just give it up. But it was so much fun, and I came up with different observations that I wouldn't have if I was just attending opera at my usual rate. There are all kinds of things that happen through music for me. I was a music major first before I got into library school, and so it was just a way of life. So all kinds of music.
Do you play an instrument?
I played clarinet through school, and also I dabbled in tenor saxophone and piano at various times, and even organ. But I'm not a performer. I'm more of the thinker.
The one thing about opera that I've always found interesting is that it isn't really necessary that it's in English, is it? It's almost,
no.
The language doesn't really matter.
No, because especially nowadays, the singers on stage are also excellent actors, and you can follow, if there's any kind of scenery and costumes and all that, that's great, props. But you can follow what they're doing up there because they're acting. And it's universal stuff as well. Most opera houses, though, if you go to an opera or you're watching on public television or something, they'll have the subtitles for you. But still, even without watching them, you get an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, it's more visual and audio. The music sort of sets the emotion, right?
Yeah. It's the mix of visual and audio, and it's I wouldn't have said this 20 years ago, but it's kind of a higher art because you have that mix in the moment, but before and after you might be reading a synopsis ahead of the opera, and then you're thinking about it after and saying, what can I look up? There's got to be something more I can find out about the time that Carmen lived, and why did this happen, or what was this location? It kind of spurs thought.
Well,
but that's why I call myself nerd traveler, because I want to read about things after the fact. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue into your book, but I just wanted to say before we close on opera that the music really sets the tone of it, because the music is so powerful that even without the story particularly, the music almost guides it to how you're supposed to be feeling in that particular moment.
Yes.
Right? Old movies used to do that. Back in the 40s, and these big sort of cinematic epic type movies like Cleopatra or Lawrence of Arabia or some of those. The music
And
really,
I think they took a lot of cues from
they
opera.
took up, yes,
well.
absolutely, and they don't do that anymore, not as much.
No, not as much. No, something like Star Wars, I'll see like the idea of leitmotifs, where if one character comes on, you'll hear their little tune, as Wagner did in his operas. That sort of thing pops up, but it's not as common as it used to be.
No, absolutely. And what I liked about movies back in those days is that they had an overture at the beginning, and then they had intermissions, with music scores, and it was really those days are gone, unfortunately.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you mentioned your book. Your book is called Nerd Traveler. Is this your first published work, or do you have other books out?
This is my first book. I have some essays published in journals and in anthologies, but Nerd Traveler is my first collection of essays, my first book, and it came out in, when did it come out, 2021? And I've been traveling around promoting it and being asked to do readings and appear at book clubs, and it's just been such a wonderful experience. So, yeah, Nerd Traveler.
Okay, so why did you decide to write this?
Well, I have been writing for a very, very long time, and at some point, you get to a certain age and you say, what? Is this all there is? Well, at least I said that. And I thought, what would I really want to do? If I wanted to give myself one more big challenge, what would it be? And I thought, I would really like to push my writing up a level. So instead of just writing short articles, I was doing a lot of travel articles, where to go and where to stay and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather do something more literary. So I signed up for an MFA program. By the way, it was the Cedar Crest MFA, where it's online, but every summer you do a residency in a different European city. So I thought that's perfect for me. And I wrote some of the essays for that program, and some of them I just wrote about other places where I went, maybe closer to home, and I put them all together in this collection with the help of some of my mentors from school. Talk about the order and why we would put this first and why would this be best as the last one and all that sort of stuff, So it turned out it was my thesis for that MFA degree, and it was just a labor of love the whole time. It was a lot of work, but it was a labor of love. And when it got published, I thought, oh, this is fun. I'll do some appearances, and then it'll kind of go to sleep. But no, it is still not in hibernation. I'm still getting asked to appear places and talk to people about it, or go to bookstores and that sort of thing. And people come up with the best questions, whether they've read it or not. They ask me such interesting things, and it's a thrill for me. I never thought I would do this, and it's just wonderful. So this is it. This is my big finish. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll think of something else I want to do. Another master's degree somewhere. I don't know.
Okay, how is this book different than a travel guide? That there are many travel guides out there.
Many travel guides, and I have a lot of them on my shelf because I like to travel. That's where you go to find out what are the best places that I should visit in a certain locality? And are there restaurants I should look for? And how should I act? And what are the customs? My book is a series of 13 essays about places. And the essays delve into the music, the art, the literature, the culture of the place. And I'll talk about the neat places to go, the museums and the castles and the cathedrals. But I'm not making any recommendations. I'm just saying this is where I went, and I thought this place was pretty cool, and here's why. So my book is the tales of my travels rather than me giving advice. But I've had a bunch of people read my book and say, oh, because of your book, I really wanted to go to this place or that place. I have a colleague who was reading the book with her daughter, teenage daughter, and the daughter became so enchanted with the idea of Louisa May Alcott's house in Massachusetts that they actually, within a few weeks, packed up the family and went and visited that whole area because the girls were, daughter and another daughter and a cousin, were big fans of Little Women, the novel Little Women. And Louisa May Alcott wrote that book in this house, and you can go and you can tour it, and it's just a wonderful thing. And I wrote about that. It was actually the last trip I took with my sister before she died, so it's very close to my heart. We were both very big Little Women fans. So to hear about this other little girl who loved the book and really wanted to go see the author's house, that's the kind of thing, that's the biggest reward I can come up with. But that's what happens. So I wasn't advising them to go. I just said, here's what I enjoyed about it, and then they went and they enjoyed it too. I think I lost track of your question, but I answered it.
Well, actually, I lost track of it too. I don't remember what I asked at this point, but that's okay. I'll give you another question. Do you have a favorite place that you've been, or a place that you go back to?
Well, that's hard to answer. I was just in Paris a few weeks ago, and I do love to go there. I was with a friend of mine who'd never been, and I had such a blast taking the double-decker bus tour through the city just to see the main things and just seeing everything again and being there. That was really fun. I do love Paris. But we got on a train and we went to the town of Bayeux, where there is a gigantic tapestry which shows the details of William the Conqueror taking over England, becoming king in the year 1066. And it's famous, to nerds like me. And we went to see that, and it was such a thrill. So I think France is my number one favorite country to go to. Paris might be my favorite city. But, I love Vienna because that's where the classical musicians came from. So you go there, and there's so many. I haven't gone to all the places there that have to do with famous musicians. I still have more to do. So that's great, too.
Okay. As a follow-up, is there some place that you have not been yet that you want to go?
I have not been to Italy, and I can't wait. I want to see all of Italy, but especially Florence, because that's where all of the interesting stuff is. The Il Duomo and so much art and so much history. But I'm trying to figure out how I can pack the most punch into a trip to Italy, because I really owe it to myself. I think there aren't many people who love to travel who haven't gone to Italy yet. So I don't have to explain to people why I haven't been there yet. I should get there and soak it in.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Florence, because I have been to Florence. I was there in 1980. That's how long ago it was.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, I fell in love with it when the movie A Room with a View came out.
Oh, yeah.
And the character Lucy Honeychurch and all of that stuff. Oh, my gosh. I identified with her. We're about the same age. Maybe at that time looked a little like her, don't anymore. But, it's just been a fantasy to get there.
Well, the three things that I remember about Florence, because it was so long ago, was the Ponte Vecchio, the David, and the pizza was the best pizza that I've ever had in my life. And at that time, it was 2,000 lira to the dollar, and pizza slices cost 25 cents, the equivalent of.
Oh, my gosh.
And they were huge,
wow.
and they were just absolutely delicious. And so that's my memory of Florence. But I'm sure a lot has changed in the last, 40-some years. But probably a lot has not changed, because so much of what we saw was hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I'm sure they didn't tear them down. No,
and I get the impression that cities or tourist boards, they want to show you certain things. Like in Vienna, everything was Johann Strauss and Mozart. You heard that music everywhere you went, and they really put forth their museums and stuff. Well, I wanted to see Schubert's apartment too, and I went to see they didn't advertise them as much. But I think they want you to see certain things, and things. I'm overusing the word things because I don't want to say places or destinations, but certain aspects of the culture. It's a tradition to go and see those.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
I said that all inside out, but yeah,
it's all right. I know what you meant. I think in Europe they do a much better job of preserving their history, which is a lot older than ours as Americans.
Right.
And they're less, they're not going to tear down a 2,000-year-old ruins. They're not going to, bulldoze the Acropolis to put up condos. They're not going to do that. So a lot of what has been there stays there. The only one that's unfortunate is Venice, because it is sort of sinking into the ocean, and I don't know how they would revive that, but
that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Anyways, Margaret, we got to kind of wind this down. So your book is called Nerd Traveler, and you said it came out in 2021. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
And how's it doing?
It was during the pandemic, so
well,
it's all a blur.
Yeah, that's 2021. Is the book doing well?
Yes. I'm astonished. I thought it would come out, make a little splash, and go away, but no, people are still reading it and enjoying it. And it's kind of evergreen, It doesn't matter that it's 3 years old this year. You can still go to these places. Still go to Prague and see the Kafka sites. They're still there. They're not been bulldozed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Anyways, last question. Do you have a website before we wind this down?
I do. I have a website. It's very simple, margaretmontet.com. That's Margaret Montet, my name with no dots in it or anything, just smushed together. And I have a newsletter that people can sign up for at that website.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and speaking with you. And
nice to meet you, too. Thanks for having me.
Best of luck with your work and your travels, and hope you get to Italy soon.
Oh, thank you.